By 2012, a man named Matthew Muller seemed to have life figured out. He had graduated summa cum laude from a very prestigious college and finished Harvard Law School a few years later. He went on to become an immigration attorney, where he had a lot of high-profile successes and was widely recognized in his field. To the untrained eye, Matthew appeared to be an upstanding human being, but no one could tell who Matthew really was as a person. In reality, he was a monster, responsible for kidnapping and doing horrendous things to an innocent woman named Denise Huskins. Even worse, the public and police didn't even believe Denise when she told them about the inhumane things Matthew did. But as the evidence came to light, it revealed that Matthew not only kidnapped Denise, but had committed many other horrific crimes. Matthew Daniel Muller was born on March 27, 1977, and if you're picturing some rough upbringing in a sketchy neighborhood that could justify the sick shit he'd go on to do later, I'm here to disappoint you. Because Matthew actually had a pretty nice life growing up. He was raised in Fair Oaks, a cozy suburb just outside of Sacramento, California, where his family looked about as all-American as it gets. His mom Joyce was a middle school English teacher, his dad Monty was a school administrator and wrestling coach, and he had a younger brother named Ken to play with. The Mullers spent their summers doing fun activities like hiking in the Sierra Nevadas, diving for abalone in Bodega Bay, and chilling at a lakeside cabin in Michigan. And if that wasn't wholesome enough for you, every Christmas they threw a party on their cul-de-sac where Monty would dress up as Santa Claus and hand out gifts to the neighborhood kids. Now, as far as Matthew himself, he was a quiet, strong-willed kid who had zero interest in becoming a jock like his father. While Monty probably wanted his son to follow in his footsteps with wrestling, Matthew opted for more solo activities like running, skiing, and walking the family dog. He was also overweight growing up, which combined with being the quiet kid made him a pretty easy target for bullies. Thankfully, he was smart enough to mostly ignore them. And I mean really smart. At Bella Vista High School, Matthew played the trumpet in the school band, was in the computer club, became fluent in Spanish, Russian, and German, and pulled a GPA above 3.8 in the school's high achiever program, even though he once described himself as a classic smart but lazy high school student. Anyway, Matthew graduated from Bella Vista in 1995, and with a brain like his, you'd expect him to head straight off to some top-tier university. But instead, on October 2nd of 95, he took a slightly different route and enlisted in the United States Marine Corps, wanting to get in shape and earn some money for college. Over the next 4 years, Matthew played the trumpet in the Marine Corps band, traveled the world to places like Japan and the Middle East, and even worked his way up to becoming a sergeant while earning several medals along the way. For a kid who grew up getting picked on for being the chubby band nerd, becoming a medal-earning Marine sergeant was a pretty damn good rebound. And it seemed like his life would only get better when, after the Marine Corps, he finally saved up enough money to go to college. Matthew briefly attended a community college before transferring to Pomona College in Claremont, California in 1999. And word quickly spread around campus about how fantastic of a guy he was. He was known as an incredibly driven, highly regimented student, as seen in his 5-mile runs he took every single morning before classes even started. Outside of his studies, he volunteered to help homeless people obtain government services and organized outdoor adventure trips for his peers. Oh, and in the summer of 2001, he also participated in a study abroad program in Prague where he met a woman from Kyrgyzstan who would eventually become his wife. Very cute. Fast forward 2 years, and Matthew graduated from Pomona in 2003 summa cum laude, double majoring in economics and public policy analysis, which is a lot more impressive than my marketing degree. He then continued to shit on my degree by casually getting into Harvard Law School. Matthew packed up and moved to Boston in the fall of 2003 to attend one of the most prestigious law schools on the planet, and just like Pomona, he went above and beyond. He volunteered at Harvard's Legal Aid Bureau, representing low-income tenants and immigrants who had been victims of domestic violence. And after graduating with his Juris Doctor in 2006, Matthew liked Harvard so much that he just stayed there. He took on a role as a clinical fellow, lecturer, and research assistant in Harvard's Immigration and Refugee Clinical Program, working directly under a leading scholar of immigration law by the name of Deborah Anker. The two co-authored papers and even Supreme Court briefs together. And when Deborah went on sabbatical, Matthew was trusted enough by her to run the entire clinical program by himself. So not only was he killing it academically, he was also smart enough to teach at Harvard. I must have fucked up somewhere in life. In early 2009, after deciding to move on from Harvard, Matthew and his wife packed up and moved to Silicon Valley, where he eventually landed as an associate at a San Francisco immigration firm called Kioski, Purbs, and Bogue in early 2012. He also founded a nonprofit called Immigrant Ability, which was dedicated to providing pro bono legal services to immigrants suffering from mental illnesses. But his biggest achievement yet was right around the corner. In June 2012, Matthew took on a pro bono case of Blanca Medina, an immigrant mother from El Salvador who was facing imminent deportation after missing a court hearing back in 2006. When all of the standard legal options to help her ran out, Matthew pulled off a move that no one saw coming. He launched an online petition on change.org called Alejandra's Wish, a petition with the goal of bringing Blanca's situation to light and pressuring federal immigration officials to halt her deportation. And it worked like a charm. The petition went absolutely viral, racking up roughly 118,000 signatures and creating enough public pressure that federal ICE officials were essentially forced to reopen Blanca's case and halt her deportation. Thanks to his buzzer-beater move, Matthew was nominated and featured by the American Bar Association Journal as one of the country's quote techiest lawyers. And at this point, it seemed like Matthew's life just simply could not get any better. He was a widely recognized Harvard-educated attorney with a viral legal win under his belt and a glowing reputation. Everything was perfect. But behind the scenes, Matthew was quietly battling demons that had been haunting him for over a decade. Dating back to his time in the Marines, something was slowly starting to break inside of him. After receiving a series of anthrax vaccines ahead of a Middle East deployment, Matthew struggled to get out of bed for weeks and began experiencing dark, intrusive thoughts where he'd tell himself, "You're not good enough. You're the worst person in the world." But he just chalked these symptoms up to Gulf War illness, even though he never saw a single day of combat. These mental struggles followed him straight to Pomona, where he fell into a weird cycle. Every summer and fall, he was a locked-in machine. But come winter and spring, his mood would nosedive and he could barely track himself through basic assignments. This pattern only got worse when he moved to Boston, where the brutal winters there amplified his negative thoughts to new extremes. He started believing that the world is terrible and that he wasn't doing enough to help, and for the first time in his life, he began contemplating suicide. Matthew eventually saw a psychiatrist at Harvard who officially diagnosed him with major depression and signs of mania. He was prescribed medication, but he stopped taking it because he hated the side effects and the idea of anyone finding out he was struggling. And so he kept his condition hidden from his colleagues, his parents, and even his wife because he felt like it was a weakness. This decision proved to be a terrible one because his dark thoughts only got darker and way more strange. He became convinced that the US government was wiretapping his phone and hacking his computer, leading him to frantically inspect wall conduits in his office for hidden bugs. Yup. Very strange. Then, in the summer of 2008, Matthew was officially diagnosed with bipolar disorder, a diagnosis he finally broke down and revealed to his parents. But his condition only continued to get worse despite seeking help. In the fall of 2009, he suffered a massive meltdown where he became fully convinced that the Chinese government and the Palo Alto police were teaming up to wage psychological warfare against him. Because of this, he left his wife a note one day on a flash drive that read, "I'm going completely off-grid. No phone, email, credit cards, etc." and fled to Hurricane, Utah, where he set up a full-blown survival camp rigged with tripwires and motion detectors, and hallucinated prickly pear cacti had human faces contorting in pain. After a few days of enduring this cactus hell, Matthew called his wife to come pick him up, and what followed was a crippling 9-month depression, leaving his bed for only about an hour a day. And from there, his life completely snowballed into oblivion. His wife filed for divorce in December of 2012, alleging that Matthew had become incredibly unstable, constantly sweeping their home for recording devices and hacking her computer. His mom had to start paying his bills just to keep him afloat. He did move to Mare Island in Vallejo, California in 2014 with a new girlfriend, but she eventually dumped him after growing concerned about his habit of taking long, late-night walks around the neighborhood dressed entirely in black. His mom said that after the breakup, something clicked off in him, and he, unfortunately, fully gave in to his mental illness. And this is when shit got really dark. Matthew developed a severe delusion that a secret group of the world's wealthiest people were actually a scienced-up version of demons responsible for all of the world's evil. and he believed that he was the one who had to stop them. So in March of 2015, while camped up at his family's vacation cabin in South Lake Tahoe, Matthew stopped sleeping entirely, started obsessively watching Batman movies on loop, and began to hatch a plan, one that would change an innocent woman's life forever. His plan was to go out and kidnap the wealthy demons he tricked himself into believing in, hold them for ransom, and give all of that ransom money to the poor. His first target was an ex-fiancée of one of his Mare Island neighbors named Andrea Roberts. Matthew had been secretly watching her and her ex's home for months, even breaking into it a few times beforehand to gather intel on when she would be the easiest to abduct. And after all of his sleuthing, he thought he had the perfect plan in place to execute the first phase of his delusional mission. But it immediately started to fall apart. The thing Matthew didn't realize was that the intel he gathered from those break-ins was bunk. Engagement cards and belongings he saw made him believe that Andrea still lived at this house and was still engaged to her ex, Aaron Quinn. But she had moved out a long time ago. In reality, Aaron now lived with his new girlfriend, a 29-year-old physical therapist named Denise Huskins. And while Matthew failed to update himself on these crucial details, he was still going to go through with his plan that night. Around 3 a.m. on the morning of March 23, 2015, Matthew, wearing a full wetsuit to avoid leaving any DNA, drilled through a window pane to bypass the lock on Aaron's house and crept in. He made his way up to the master bedroom where Aaron and Denise were sound asleep, and startled them awake with a blinding strobe light and red lasers dancing across the walls. Armed with an electric stun gun and what looked like a firearm, which was actually just a water gun spray painted black, he ordered the couple to lie face down on the bed. And creepily, he addressed Aaron by his first name and told them, "This is a robbery. We are not here to hurt you." From there, Matthew had Denise zip tie Aaron's wrists and ankles together, and then forced the two of them to hop into the master bedroom closet. Inside the closet, he pulled out blacked out swim goggles over Aaron's eyes and headphones over his ears that played a pre-recorded robotic message, calming music, and whispers of multiple people. The message claimed that Matthew was part of a professional group there to collect financial debts, and if they didn't comply, Denise would be punished by electric shocks and cuts to her face. He even checked their vitals with a blood pressure cuff, asked them about their medical history to make sure they didn't have drug allergies, and forced them to drink a sedative consisting of diazepam and NyQuil, warning Aaron that if he refused, the drugs would be administered by force through his bloodstream. After giving them the sedative, Matthew took Denise into a separate bedroom and finally realized the situation he was in. He returned to the closet and asked Aaron if his current girlfriend looked like Andrea Roberts, to which Aaron confirmed that yes, they both had long blonde hair. Realizing his mistake, Matthew told Aaron, "This was intended for Andrea. We got the wrong intel." But since his sick delusional ass couldn't bear leaving this mission empty-handed, he decided to kidnap Denise anyway. From there, Matthew interrogated Aaron to get all of his financial account passwords, his email, and his Wi-Fi router login, and stole his laptop. He then guided Aaron downstairs and sat him on the couch, taping off a perimeter on the floor with red duct tape that Aaron was ordered not to cross. He also taped a motion sensor surveillance camera to the ceiling, warning Aaron that his family would be harmed if he called the police. Matthew left a pair of scissors on the counter so Aaron could eventually cut himself free, and then headed back upstairs to grab an unconscious Denise. He forced her into the trunk of Aaron's Toyota Camry, drove off, eventually transferred her to the trunk of a stolen white Ford Mustang, and then hauled her 200 miles north to his mother's vacation cabin in South Lake Tahoe. Back in Mare Island, Aaron woke up groggy around 11:30 a.m. and realized Denise, his laptop, and his car were all gone. He checked his email and found ransom messages demanding a total of $17,000 across 2 separate payments, with bizarre instructions to tell the bank the money was for a ski boat if anyone asked. Aaron immediately called his brother, who was an FBI agent, who told him to contact the police ASAP. And so at 1:53 p.m., Aaron officially reported the home invasion and kidnapping to the Vallejo Police Department. Now, you would think this would be the part where police show up, take Aaron's statement, and launch a massive manhunt for Denise, but that could not be farther from what actually happened. When the police arrived at the Mare Island home and saw all of the bizarre evidence, the red tape, the zip ties, the taped goggles, the ceiling camera, they immediately thought Aaron's story was way too insane to be true. So they hauled him down to the station, treated him as a murder suspect, and put him through an 18-hour interrogation led by Detective Matt Mustard. They repeatedly told Aaron his story was a lie while confiscating his phone and putting it on airplane mode, which turned out to be a massive blunder because at 8:31 p.m. and 8:33 p.m., Matthew used a prepaid track phone to call Aaron's twice. Because his phone was on airplane mode, both of the calls were missed, and cell tower data later revealed those calls had originated from within 200 meters of the South Lake Tahoe cabin where Denise was being held. Back at the cabin, Matthew had Denise secured to a queen-size bed with zip ties and a bicycle lock, with the windows barricaded with cardboard to block out any light. He forced her to wear the blacked-out swim goggles whenever he entered the room, and over the course of her captivity, he assaulted her twice, recording it all on camera. What's more outlandish is that in between all of this horrific shit, Matthew was treating Denise like he was hosting her at a bed and breakfast. He fed her pizza, gave her wine and water, let her shower, and even put on a movie for her to watch. And the next morning on March 24th, as news of Denise's appearance started blowing up in the media, Matthew had her record a proof of life audio file. In it, Denise stated, "My name is Denise Huskins, and I'm kidnapped. Otherwise, I'm fine." To prove the recording was recent, she also mentioned the German airliner that had crashed in the French Alps that morning, and verified her identity by saying her first concert was Blink-182. Matthew then used an anonymous server in Singapore to email that recording from Aaron's hacked account to a San Francisco Chronicle reporter named Henry Lee. By the night of March 24th, Matthew had made a surprising decision. He figured that Denise wasn't worth anything more to him financially, and weirdly enough, her calm demeanor during this entire nightmare had actually impressed him, and so he decided to end the kidnapping and let her go. He drugged her one more time, loaded her into his car, and prepared for the 400-mile drive south to drop her off in Huntington Beach. And when he released her alive and breathing, you would think this would be the end of Denise's nightmare, but it was only the beginning. Around 10 a.m. on the morning of March 25th, Matthew dropped Denise off near her mom's home. Before driving off, he gave her some final instructions to wear sunglasses to hide the tape over her eyes and threatened that her family would be harmed if she told the police he was military or that he assaulted her. Terrified for her family's lives, Denise walked to her dad's apartment building, borrowed a phone from a nearby gardener, and left her dad a voicemail saying she was safe. Her dad then immediately called the authorities, and the Huntington Beach Police Department showed up to meet with Denise shortly after. Initially, the conversation between Denise and the officers went fine. She described her entire ordeal in detail, from the wetsuits to the lasers to the swim goggles to being transported in a trunk to being locked up in a barricaded room with a bicycle lock. Once again though, terrified of Matthew's threats, she told the officers she was not assaulted. But as the chat went on, the officers started asking very strange questions like, did you ever ask him to let you go? And at one point, Denise even noticed one of them secretly recording her down at his side. It became obvious that they thought she was lying, and up in Vallejo, everyone else thought the same thing. Because of all of the bizarre evidence left behind at Aaron's house, Detective Mustard, the Vallejo police chief, and FBI agent David Sesma unanimously decided within just 30 minutes that the whole kidnapping was an orchestrated fraud. Reason being, Denise was carrying an overnight bag, wearing sunglasses, and reappeared near her parents' home. So in their eyes, there was no way she acted like a kidnapping victim. So instead of giving their terrified kidnapping victims the benefit of the doubt, the Vallejo police offered Aaron and Denise proffer agreements, aka immunity from prosecution if they admitted the kidnapping was made up. They even tried to pit the two against each other by claiming whoever took the deal first would be the one to get it. Of course, both Aaron and Denise refused. But then things got even worse that night when at 9:27 p.m., Vallejo Police Lieutenant Kenny Park held a nationally televised press conference publicly declaring the kidnapping a hoax. Park claimed there was no evidence to support the claims of an abduction and called it an orchestrated event in a wild goose chase. He berated the couple, saying they plundered valuable resources, instilled fear in the community, and owed the community a massive apology. Basically, this press conference told the entire world that Denise and Aaron were full of shit. The whole thing rocked Aaron and Denise to their cores, but the next morning, Denise's attorney knew they had to clap back hard. First, they set up a sexual assault exam where Denise finally disclosed to Mustard and Sesma that she had been assaulted twice by Matthew and explained why she had initially lied to the Huntington Beach police. Then Aaron and Denise's attorney held their own aggressive press conferences, ripping the police a new one, confirming that Aaron had willingly given up DNA, passwords, and sat through an 18-hour 2-hour interrogation. Denise's attorney even boldly declared that Denise was, quote, absolutely, unequivocally, 100% positively a victim, and this is no hoax. But then something even wilder happened. Matthew himself, frustrated that the police weren't believing his victims, sent another email to that San Francisco Chronicle reporter Henry Lee, flat out saying, Miss Huskins was absolutely kidnapped. We did it. He also claimed to be a part of a group of Ocean's 11-style gentleman criminals who chastised the police's response as a travesty. Just 2 days later, he sent a third email, a 9,500-word manifesto where he expressed deep remorse for the kidnapping and included photos of the Tahoe room he held Denise in, the zip ties, and the laptop he stole from Aaron. And despite all of these details, undeniable evidence being handed directly to the police, they still refused to believe Aaron and Denise. And because the police pushed their hoax narrative so hard, the public and the media viciously turned on the innocent couple too. The case got compared non-stop to the movie Gone Girl, which had come out the previous year and had a similar plot line to Denise's, and the online harassment and death threats Aaron and Denise received were relentless. On top of that, both of them nearly lost their jobs at the hospital they worked at as physical therapists. Denise was so traumatized that she slept with a hammer next to her bed and walked around with a knife in her hand, constantly checking behind doors and corners for intruders. Meanwhile, the Vallejo police and FBI refused to retract the hoax accusations or apologize, and for months, Aaron and Denise were painted as the most hated couple in America. But all of that would change in early June 2015, thanks to one stupid mistake Matthew would end up making. But before we get into how the cops finally cracked this case wide open, I want to talk to you about something important. Your finances. Keeping track of your finances can feel like a full-time job. Between all of your bank accounts, credit cards, investments, and subscriptions spread across 20 different apps, it's pretty easy to lose sight of where your money actually is. And that's why I've been using Monarch Money to get all of that off my plate. Monarch is a private, ad-free personal finance platform that syncs all of your accounts, credit cards, loans, and investments into one clean dashboard. I can see my spending, my net worth, and my recurring bills all in one beautiful view without having to hop across a dozen banking apps. And my personal favorite feature is how Monarch separates my fixed spending from my flexible spending. So I know exactly how much I have to play with each month without feeling like I'm micromanaging every single dollar I drop on DoorDash. It also gives me AI-powered insights that explain why my net worth went up or down month to month, and I can ask Monarch questions about my finances and get clear, straightforward answers in plain English. Plus, the app works on both web and mobile, so I can check in on my money wherever I'm at. And on top of all of that, it syncs with over 13,000 institutions using bank-level encryption. And you're the customer, not the product, so they never sell your data or show you ads. Scan the QR code on screen or head to my link in the description and use code BC50 to start a free trial and get 50% off your first year. Alright, back to the video. Fast forward to the early morning hours of June 5th, 2015, a time when Matthew attempted another home invasion, this time at the home of Chung and Lin Yen in Dublin, California. Matthew broke in, woke the couple up by shining a flashlight in their faces, and ordered them to lie on their stomachs to be restrained with zip ties. But unlike Aaron and Denise, Chung wasn't going to go down without a fight. He immediately clapped back, triggering a violent struggle that ended with Matthew striking him in the head with a metal flashlight and causing a severe wound. Meanwhile, Lynn managed to lock herself in a bathroom and dial 911, which caused a panicked Matthew to flee the house, but not before making a catastrophic mistake. He dropped his cell phone on a cabinet in the second floor hallway. When the Dublin police showed up, they recovered Matthew's Samsung Galaxy Note 4 and got a search warrant for the subscriber info. And Verizon traced the phone to an address on Mississippi Bar Drive in Orangevale, California, Matthew's mom's house. A quick database check showed that Matthew Muller was associated with that same address, and his DMV photograph matched the physical description of the Dublin attacker perfectly. Detectives then contacted Matthew's mom at the Orangevale home, and she confirmed the phone belonged to her son, even mentioning that he had told her he lost it earlier that day. But most importantly, she casually dropped the bombshell that Matthew primarily lived at his family's vacation cabin on Genoa Avenue in South Lake Tahoe, the same cabin where he held Denise hostage. 2 days later, on June 7th, Alameda County Sheriff's detectives contacted the El Dorado County Sheriff's Office about the Tahoe address, and when deputies scoped out the place, they discovered a stolen white 2011 Ford Mustang parked near the property. The same Mustang that had been reported reported stolen out of Vallejo earlier that year and Matthew used to kidnap Denise. And just to seal the deal, when detectives inspected the car, they found Matthew's driver's license hidden under the front seat. With that last undeniable link, the cops immediately obtained an arrest warrant for Matthew, along with search warrants for both the cabin and the Mustang. At 7:15 a.m. on June 8th, Alameda County Sheriff's detectives, including Dublin Police Detective Mitzi Karasu, executed the search warrant at the Tahoe cabin. They found Matthew casually wandering the hallway and immediately placed him under arrest. And while executing the search, Mitzi uncovered a literal mountain of evidence that tied the Dublin home invasion directly to the Gone Girl kidnapping everyone had called a hoax. Inside the cabin, they seized a laptop with a serial number that matched the exact one stolen from Aaron's home. In the trunk of the stolen Mustang, Mitzi found a black military-style belt containing the blacked-out swim goggles Matthew used on his victims, and stuck to the duct tape on those goggles was a single long blonde hair matching Denise's. They also recovered the spray-painted water gun and even pulled up the Mustang's GPS navigation history, which revealed the recent destination of Utica St. Huntington Beach, California, which was the exact spot where Denise had been released. Just like that, the Vallejo Police Department's hoax theory was completely blown out of water, and Aaron and Denise were finally vindicated. But Matthew's horrific story was far from over, because after deeper investigations into his history, it revealed some shocking truths. In September 2016, Matthew officially pleaded guilty to one count of federal kidnapping, and the following year, a federal judge sentenced him to 40 years in federal prison. And because the charges didn't include the assaults he committed against Denise, state prosecutors came after him separately in March 2022 and nailed him with an additional 31-year state sentence. But the most shocking part of all of this, the Denise Huskins case wasn't even the tip of the iceberg for Matthew. When the FBI unsealed their affidavit against Matthew in July of 2015, they asked the public to come forward with any other crimes connected to him. And thanks to advances in DNA testing and Matthew's own confessions from prison, investigators uncovered a decades-long trail of horrific crimes he had gotten away with. Back in August 1993, when he was just 16 years old, Matthew held a teenage couple at gunpoint while they were camping at Folsom Lake, tied up the boyfriend, and assaulted the girlfriend. In September 2009, he broke into a Mountain View apartment dressed in a black spandex suit and ski mask, tied a woman up, forced her to drink NyQuil, and attempted to assault her. Just a few weeks after that, he did nearly the exact same thing to a 32-year-old Stanford student in Palo Alto. And just 2 weeks after he kidnapped Denise, Matthew broke into a home near San Ramon and held 2 men and 1 woman hostage for tens of thousands of dollars in ransom. For all of these crimes, Matthew was eventually sentenced to multiple consecutive life sentences with no possibility of parole, so he's never seeing the outside world again. Good fucking riddance. And as for Aaron and Denise, they're in a much better spot now. The couple reached a $2.5 million settlement in a defamation lawsuit against the city of Vallejo. And in June 2021, the Vallejo police finally issued a formal public apology. They got married in 2018 and now have 2 daughters, Olivia and Naomi. And they've since co-authored a memoir titled Victim F: From Crime Victims to Suspects to Survivors, and have been working with law enforcement to train officers on science-based interviewing to prevent another victim from going through the same hell as they did. For another video on a sick individual, click this to hear the story of Leo Radvinsky, the creepy billionaire behind OnlyFans.